We are missing quite a few of our members, so if everybody here in the public could just give us a few minutes to wait for them to get here, and then we will go ahead and start the hearing. So I'll go ahead and open it now, and then I'll just go into recess.
I apologize for being late. I know your time's valuable. We're going to begin shortly. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes. Okay. With that, we are beginning our continuing series on bail reform and bail bills. And I believe we have several speakers to address us today from the counties. And I would invite, what we got first, Superintendent? Superintendent Henry, please.
Morning, everybody. Superintendent Henry from Rockingham County Jail. How are you?
Well, how are you?
Good.
By all means, the floor is yours.
Sure.
It
I
did-
didn't know if you had questions of me. That's what I'm here for.
Well, we had assumed that you might want to tell us a little bit about how bail interacts with your agency, what happens, what you do, what you see happening now.
Sure. So bail in general, it's traditionally, again, I've been around for almost 20 years, over 20 years. Somebody gets picked up for a crime, and then they can either get a bail commissioner at a PD or even at the jail. For us, the way it works is bail commissioner comes out, meets with the individual, and from there they decide of what bail it might be, do the paperwork, collect money, all those type of things from the individual. And then from there, if they're being released, we release them. It could be PR bail, it could be cash bail if they have cash show up, or if not, it's preventive detention, then they stay with us. I know you guys were looking at a couple things, magistrates at one time, but I don't know if that's still something out there, which is great because we'd have a lot more to talk about. I know you were looking at 13 crimes that would would have to stay. That wouldn't really affect the jails because we have people stay anyways. So we're kind of used to that. Biggest thing for us is lack of bail commissioners. That is the huge problem, and I've seen that again over 20 plus years. I worked with bail commissioners, and part of it is them not getting paid. To be honest with you, I work with bail commissioners. There was $1,500 to $2,000 that they were not reimbursed for, and they tried way back when to get the courts to help them out, and they said no. So you had a lot of people leave because of that. Even though it's a small fee, but we're waking these people up in the middle of the night to come on out over and over again, and to do it for free was always very frustrating for them. So a way for them to actually obtain their fees, I think we'd actually get more bail commissioners, which is helpful because then people can, if they don't belong inside the jail, or again, bail is just to make sure they're showing up at court. So if they have that opportunity, then they should have that opportunity and not have to put it on a police officer, make a decision of hand summons, or sometimes the PDs will have to go no bail and do it themselves, and that means they have to show up at court and justify that because we can't find a bail commissioner, and that is prevalent in a lot of places, a lack of bail commissioners. So there's that. Trying to think what else you guys had. Was there other questions on that?
Sure. If you could speak to what do you have in your facility to deal with people that either are suffering from substance abuse when they arrive or from mental health problems?
Sure. So, which is, we'll say 99% of people coming in either on something or they're co-occurring. So we have a lot. So for dealing with those individuals, again, is always tough. Why even doing the booking procedure or sometimes even bail commissioner, because they're not in the right state of mind, is also difficult, where we sometimes not able to do a bail commissioner at first, and once they either come down from their drugs or alcohol, they still have another opportunity to do bail when they're able to be coherent. For like us, for Rockingham County, we do have 24-hour medical care. Some places do not. Mental health care is not 24 hours a day, but what every place does have is a screening tool we use for health purposes. You know, how whatever's going on that they need for medications, those kinds of things, and a mental health evaluation. and that's 24/7. Everybody gets screened in. If, again, I will also preface, if we're able to, there are individuals we're not able to work with them yet that we have to put to the side and wait until they can calm down and keep coming back to them to see where they're at. But once they're booked in, we use those tools. The health evaluation tools will go to medical, and then if it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, my medical will come down afterwards and actually do a full screen-in. If medical's at another place only during the day or first and second shift, they'll come down and do that screening in the morning. If it's mental health evaluation, like we do the sheets, what it does, it adds up to a certain amount of points, those kinds of things, and it gets flagged in the mental health department. And again, if they're still there the next day, they also will be seen by mental health to evaluate them. And that can rise to a whole other level of different things. Just because somebody's like, say, a protective custody or even PR bail, it could rise to a level where we're doing an IEA process and to get them help, and that could stall process from leaving. For just so you know, person with cognizant bail, if they do not have a ride in the middle of the night, none of us release them, which technically speaking, they're free individuals. But back in the day, there was an individual released from a jail under that, went out in the middle of the road, sat down, and was hit by a vehicle because they wanted to commit suicide. So we no longer do that to help these individuals out, which is pushing what we're doing. But again, I'd rather go to court on safety. All of us, the superintendents, rather go to court on safety for an individual rather than having them go and get injured. So
If I could just on that, so you're talking strictly about people that have been screened to have mental health problems. A person who's fine and released on PR, if they have a ride or not, they're free to walk off. Or
if they have a ride, not in the dark, we won't let them walk off just in the dark on their own without a ride, because
I know where you're located. Yeah.
yeah, well, we all are.
the
So
highways right there.
yeah, Kawas County, middle of nowhere. So yeah, if they don't have a ride, whether they're mentally ill or not, we won't, because of it's just too dangerous for them and for us. And again, I'd rather be tried by a jury rather than carry somebody. So we all have taken that stance for many years to do that.
That's only at nighttime. In the daytime.
Daytime, they can, depending which jail you're at. My jail doesn't allow people to just walk. I actually pay for taxi voucher rides.
Oh.
A lot of money, but
So along the same questioning with the mental health, say for example, you get someone that comes in who may be schizophrenic, and they're off their meds, which is why they're there. Are they seen that night, or is it the next day by mental health? And if so, when? How do you know what meds they're on? Do you have access to the prescriptions they have based on the electronic system, or how do you figure that out?
you got a couple of things. One, if they come with any medication, that automatically gets bagged, and then we'll go to medical, because they'll have to go back and confirm the medications, their doctors, all those kinds of things. Mental health usually is only in during the day, and not everybody has 7 days a week. So, or like I do. So if somebody was a higher level, really need things, there are places to call in to evaluate that kind of person, especially if they're experiencing a severe crisis. Once medical or mental health comes down, again, depending on what you have, some can wait because it's just, they're okay, they're safe. But if they're in crisis, they'll get somebody. Then they try to work with that individual to find out what information they can. If that individual is willing to sign a waiver, usually what they do, so that way they can call their doctors, the pharmacy, all those kinds of things. They will backtrack and find all their medications that they're on to get them what they need. If they can't, what we a lot of times will do is, do you have a relative we can get a hold of? Especially they have, sign off on that allow us to. We'll get a hold of a relative, those kinds of things. Medical does everything they can to try to find what their history is and what proper medication they can be on. So that transfers from basically the corrections end to the medical end. We let them do that, and they do a good job across the board. I will say that. I've worked from Merrimack County. I was superintendent of Carroll County, was second smallest in the state, to Rockingham County, second biggest in the state. So I can tell you, I have firsthand experience with how that works, and that's pretty consistent all across the board.
Okay. And substance abuse, do you have any kind of program to bring people down who are going into withdrawals, like
Yep.
Suboxone or things of that nature?
So, a couple things. Suboxone stuff that would be more of, we'd find out if they're actually on it, then you have to go back to the doctors, make sure they're really on it and all those kinds of things. And then they may maintain on it. Somebody who's just in protective custody or even PR bail for over the night are probably not going to get that because we can't even show that they're actually on it. You can't just give it to somebody because they say it. But if they are, the RSA 30B is pretty clear. We would continue with their medication, screen them for their medication, those kinds of things. They would be continuing on it. We all have some sort of tapers if they're going through some bad withdrawals. So you medicals departments all have protocols. We give medications. You have anything from not just medications, but also like if they need Gatorade, everything else. And we've come a long way. I mean, over the years, wasn't medications and withdrawal. We just try to make you as comfortable as possible. A lot of things have changed over the years. None of us want to deal with a person who's in being very, very sick, and then which makes them very angry, and then makes them hard to deal with. And that's not what we want to do. We want to try to make them comfortable as possible to get them through, because it's not. Again, our goal is corrections. Our goal is not punishment. Punishment is the court. You go to jail. Our job is to make sure that you're going back to your family or moving on to another facility or whatever you want to do. So there's a lot of protocols. And I can tell you in New Hampshire, 5 out of the 10 counties all have Prime Care, which is a medical company. They're NCCHC certified, which is the gold standard of, so they actually have an independent company come look at them, make sure they're doing the right things. And they have wonderful policies and protocols. We have things called levels, which if you come in and you are with a certain charge or crime or a behavior, you may be put on a one-on-one watch, which means I have to have an officer right there. Could be level 1 watch, which is every 15 minutes. Could be level 2, could be level 3. So we have levels for those that have mental health issues for us. And this what comes into daily rate, which is some of the things that always get asked for. There's no way to calculate daily rate. Used to be ADP versus your budget. Now, and I've spoken to National Institute of Corrections, American Jail Association to try to figure out how to calculate what it costs. I can't. If an individual comes in tonight who needs some medical care, and one ambulance ride for me is $1,700. So that person just cost me $1,700 right there. If a person comes in and we now need a one-on-one person with them, if you did one-on-one 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, say they stayed, that's 21 spots of overtime for that individual, plus their medical care, plus their mental health care, and all those kinds of things. So it's very hard to say what an average cost is going to be.
Are you able to bill Medicaid for any of those things, like the ambulance ride services?
If they happen to have it when they come in, which some do, some don't. If they have private insurance, we try to go after it, but most of these people do not have anything. So no, that is also shut off 30 days after you're in anyway. So no, I shouldn't say shut off. It's paused. It's paused, and then it's able to turn back on 30 days before they go. So that whole time frame in between, we pay for all of it, and we usually pay for the ambulance rides. Now, we only pay what I think it's 125 of the Medicaid rate for hospitals and that kind of stuff. If an individual is actually admitted to the hospital, we can go back and try to get that reimbursed, admitted. And that's where you start splitting hairs with the hospitals. They can do an observation period. If they do observation, we pay that bill. So sometimes we're in conflict, like, you admitting them or not, because we need to figure this out, because I can get money back. And so yeah, we eat a lot of that cost. I mean, it's very expensive, including the medications. I mean, I had an individual who's his medication was going to cost me $1 million at Carroll County. Had to have it. Thank God another company came out of the woodwork after I spent $200,000 in small little Carroll County, which is way more than I had in the budget to take that over. So costs are very tough to determine. If somebody has to stay on a Hep C and continue with that, that is very, very expensive. It doesn't happen a lot in the counties. It happens a lot in the state. So
it's kind of like a school board almost. It's hard to predict, but you don't know if you have a special ed student come in and could blow your budget right out of the water.
I used to call them a SAG, special aid guess, on my budgets.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it is. You can take a pattern of what you had in the past year, a couple of years. That sounds pretty good. You may build a little bit in, but one person can come in and, open heart surgery, something else that happened. You just don't know. The overdoses that we have are in New Hampshire have gone through the roof. We use Narcan on a regular basis. and you take somebody that has Narcan, goes out in ambulance, needs more Narcan or a Narcan drip, and they need high level of care. That's often we're sending people to the hospital on a regular basis. Yesterday was 2 people to the hospital. The people that we see are very acute. The acuity of mental health and just health issues has exploded since about the middle of COVID on, and it has not stopped. So that has increased across the board for all of us.
Is there any mechanism for you to get additional funding from the state or from the federal government to help offset some of these costs that you're aware of?
No, I mean, so not really. I mean, the opioid abatement trust, which I do sit on, sometimes some grants come out for there. We just did a round of reimbursement for medicated assisted treatment back for 2 years. So some of us got some of that, are getting, well, once it makes through GNC, we're getting back some of that cost. But moving forward, no, there really isn't a mechanism.
What about services from outside? Do you have any type of arrangement where people that come in there that may not have Medicaid or something, or anything, Social Security, any of that, where services are allowed to come in and help these people or talk with them? Or
Yeah, so we have a lot of rapport, a lot of the communities. We'll have the rapid response team come in and work with individuals if we need to have them put into an evaluation. Most jails, I think almost all, we have case managers. We'll work with these individuals to get their licenses, try to get them set up with their first doctor's appointment. Again, a protective custody inmate or just a PR inmate is probably not going to get these things.
'Cause they're not long
We'll give them
enough.
if we can give them a pamphlet, hey, you want to contact, they're just not there long enough for us to really to do much besides care from why they're there. If they're there for any length of time, then we're able to try to give them their first doctor's appointment, try to get them to their Social Security, anything that they need that we can. Our case managers will try to work with them to get them hooked up as fast as possible, including housing. We'll look for housing for them, those kinds of things. It just depends if they're there for enough with us but we inside have a lot of that and a lot of connections in the community.
to the best of your knowledge, what is that like across all the counties? Is it very inconsistent? Is it?
Yeah, I would say it's very inconsistent. I mean, you go to the northern part of the state, there's the services probably not there as robust as they are down in the state. I know, like, my friend Subtemp there, he has made connections in the community and does what he can. But again, it really just depends on what you have in your community, those
Yeah.
kinds of things. So it's all over. I would say it's all over the map.
Do you work at all with any pretrial services? In other words, a handoff to people who are getting out on bail?
So Rockingham County is a little different.
Yeah.
We have our own pre-trial service program. The jail, we pay for the program itself.
Oh, okay.
So we have a pre-trial program. We also have adult diversion program.
Can you explain those to us?
Adult diversion, that's done. The court will recommend adult diversion. We have one lady that works with them. They'll come in, they do check-ins, and she has them do some programs, those kinds of things. We actually never really see them.
Mm-hmm.
The pretrial program, again, it's recommendations by the court for somebody to be on pretrial release, which would mean we would monitor them and they would have to come in to be tested on your analysis testing, see where they're at, and all those kinds of things. No,
Do you do electronic monitoring?
yeah, it's all they'd all be on electronic monitoring through that. Different between us and other places, because the jail owns it, the liability is on the jail, and where my people and me personally are not indemnified. The counties that own the court owns it are indemnified. So, like, we get pushback from some of the judges for Rockingham in particular, who are used to some other counties, saying, "Well, why aren't you putting large amount of people out?" Which, if you look at some of these other counties, they don't even know where half the people are. It's neither here nor there. I'm like, because we own them. It's my liability, not the courts. So we put out the proper people. If you have some crimes that are not appropriate, we don't put them out. There's also other criteria. You need to have housing and this and that. So it's a bunch of stuff to go through, and that's normal of all the programs. But Rockingham County in particular, they're ones we won't put out. That the court, if they wanted to take that, if they took over our program, they could put more people out, because then they'd be indemnified from all those lawsuits when somebody goes out and does something heinous.
Well, explain that to me. I'm a little confused. So if the court says you are assigned to pretrial, the state court assigns it to the county pretrial, the county pays for it,
Mhm.
and the county's responsible for the person, and the county decides whether or not they get out?
We decide, because we own the program, decide if they get on. It's a recommendation from the court.
Okay.
That they cannot make the court cannot make the jail pretty much do
Right.
anything. They
So the
make
court doesn't
recommendations.
set bail. It leaves it up to you to decide whether they should be out.
On pretrial, they'll make
Yeah.
recommendations that should be on pretrial release, and then we will determine under our program, our criteria, if they belong out. If the pretrial program is owned by the court, then usually those people will just follow what the judge's order says, and here you go, the judge has determined that. But because we own it, we pay for it, and it's a high liability for us and the county taxpayer dollars, they come back and sue me and everything else, we're going to own that liability. That's why if it goes back to the courts, they own that liability if somebody goes out. That's the way ours works. So we're a little different. I think we're the only one that actually pay for it. And some counties do not have a pretrial program. I know you guys talking about next week, but I'll just throw this out. One of the reasons why a lot of counties and don't want a pretrial program, don't have it, there is no tooth in a pretrial program. I can't bring anybody back. If somebody violates in a pretrial program and should be back in the jail and do something severe, I actually can't bring them back unless they make, if it's a crime and I can call a police officer in, great. But if they're high, doing all kinds of stuff they shouldn't be doing, we don't have the authority to bring them back. You have to write a letter to the court can make a determination to bring them back. Or if they're on probation can say, you've messed up, you're going back to jail. And it could be for a short duration of time, which they do, a couple of days to reassess, find what's going on. The county program, we can't do that. So something to look down along the road, putting some language in there saying that the counties, they had a pretrial program, they could bring them back. We could manage and handle a lot of people better than trying to wait for the court. We could bring them back, then work with the court, those kinds of things. So makes it difficult on that kind of program when you don't have really control, but yet you're supposed to oversee them and make sure they're not doing
Well, it seems kind of pointless if you put somebody on an ankle monitor and say you can't go here and here between these hours, and they do it anyway. What do you do?
let the court
Write
know.
a letter to the court and say,
And yes, which is very frustrating.
yeah,
It's frustrating because, you could have a victim out there and they're not in the zone. They're not supposed to be there. Now you can it's our zone, inclusive zone. So we're supposed to be there, or it could be the court order 100 feet. You can let a PD know maybe they went there. Maybe they'll go pick them up, but probably not. That we have to send to the court and let them violate and those kinds of things. Where normally, if it's like a probation officer, they just go back and pick them up. Obviously, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. We need to reassess and figure out what's going on.
and do you liaise with parole as well?
We do. We work with them too. But again, they have pretty much their own program.
Right. But if they violate someone, they bring them and they drop them off and
Yep.
say he's a
Yeah, they can
violator.
do two things with them. They can violate them. The violate and bring them back. And the way it works is if they get a new charge, they stay with us while they go through a new charge before they actually violate them, which that was a change from probably 8, maybe more 9 years ago. God, time flies. Where it used to be if they were picked up on a violation, they go right to the state prison. But then there was some nice downshifting where they would pick them up on a new charge, put them to the county facility where we get to hold them and pay for them. And then once they go through a new charge, then they get violated and go to state prison so they can pick it up. It was some
Wait a second.
downshifting.
Someone's on state parole, they commit a crime on state parole officer gives them to the county, you hold them until they get found guilty or not guilty, and then based on that decision, they violate them, and then they go back to the state.
Yep. It used to be reversed years ago. It was a downshift. Then there was testimony at that time too that was going to be a downshift to us, to the counties.
I generally push back on the downshift concept, but that's actually a real example.
Yeah. I just been around long enough to remember.
Okay.
And I'll speak for Rockingham County myself. Truthfully, if I had my way, I would take 2 years. Don't take us all superintendents. I would take 2-year sentences and have our own probation, where most of us have gone to a 90-day in-house treatment program with step downs and all kinds of stuff. And if you look at the research, 1 year of aftercare, where you can actually have our case managers follow them in the community, make sure you're going doctor's appointments, everything else. There's high success in those programs. Sullivan County does a great job. They partner with probation, and the courts were all on board to do it down there. They get 2 years probation. The first year they do the program, and then they do step down. If they do well, they cut off the probation. If counties had that, then we would have more control over those 2 years, which are shorter sentences on a lot of different things, and they're not usually the higher violent crimes or anything like that. You'd actually have more leverage to work with these individuals, because the longer they're clean, the longer that they're in the programs, those kinds of things, the less likelihood that they're going to reoffend. And that does not mean be inside the jail for 2 years. That means get them to go through the program, step down to work release, step down to home confinement, but still having the ability to be working with them if they make a mistake. could still stay out there, or does it need to be pulled back and go, okay, you need to come back in. We need to restart with some programs. We need to start looking this again. We know that people are going to fall off the wagon, but how bad or what have they done, and what can we work them with? That's just my pie in the sky. Just
No,
that's me.
It's definitely good input. Back to the strictly the bail issue. Do you have any idea, first of all, let's go back to your pretrial. What does it cost, that program, to the county?
Pre-trial program.
Yeah.
I'd have to look. I mean, I'd have to look at my budget. Well, we have 2 dedicated full-time officers to that for us for the pre-trial program. Beyond the electronic monitoring, most of the bracelets we end up paying for because it's cost effective. So 2 salaries plus the bracelets is basically what's costing us, and we have end space. So I'd have to look at the budget exactly what it is, but I could get you that.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Yep.
The bracelet I'm particularly interested in. I feel like that could be better utilized across the state and let more people remain out and continue working if they were able to be monitored. Can you give me an idea on the cost and the scope of that program?
So we monitor through the pretrial program. We actually do monitor them. So bracelets cost anywhere from, depending on what they are, it could be up to $10 a day for the bracelet. And there's a couple different ways. I mean, if the county wanted to pay for it, they could, or the individual. A lot of times if they're working, it's charged to the individual because they still get the opportunity to be out in the community.
Right.
Monitoring, it just depends. Like we have a pretrial program, so my people do monitor.
So the company doesn't monitor and notify?
No,
you?
not company doesn't monitor. We monitor because we're the ones that have to go tell the courts and everything else, and we're the ones watching the computer and everything. Not everybody has a program like that. Smaller facilities will be tough because you don't have a manpower maybe to. If you put a bunch of people out, somebody has to be either on their phone tracking them and a computer is tracking them and figuring out where they are, setting up those zones, bringing them in to tell them where they can and can't go. You usually bring them in so often, especially if they're some sort of drug offense, to do urinalysis tests to make sure they're not using new substances. So there's manpower in this. But again, I too believe that better off in the community and doing some of these things, working with them. And the jails have a good opportunity, I think, to do it because we're open 24/7. You can work with an individual who may have a day job and can't be pulled out to go do urinalysis and other things. So they may be able to come in the evening and vice versa. Where some other places, maybe 9 to 5, we're done. So we're able to work with, I feel, able to work with some others just because we can make things work for them. But
And all the jails across the state are open 24 hours a day.
yes, we cannot close.
Are you aware of whether or not the company that you deal with also offers services where they do the monitoring?
No, I don't know any companies that offer the
I
monitoring.
know in Massachusetts, their parole has a system where I believe it's a third party that monitors and notifies the parole officers, okay, your parolee is here or there, or they didn't check,
They might, with something explored.
It's not-
It's
okay.
probably at a substantial cost.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
Anything can be done with money.
yeah, okay. Thank you. Anyone on the Representative Wheeler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking of anything can be done with money, if there was the money to invest in the community as well in terms of mental health services or other community-based services that might be able to catch those people with that issue before they get to jail, do you think that that would help with the people who are admitted to the prison and the amount of people you're seeing with substance abuse issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Brick and mortar. And you'll hear it over and over again from all of us and everybody else. The state just lacks brick and mortar for not just twofold here. Getting out, someplace to go, so they can get stable and move on. We don't want to put them back in the same place they were because they're just going to come back. 2, if there were places like Massachusetts have where you can go and show up because you're going in a mental health crisis or other things, or the police can bring you there where specialists are there for a mental health crisis and dealing with them, would stop them from coming inside the jail. When they come into the jail, I can't use 4-point restraints. We cannot forcibly medicate anybody. So you're dealing with a system that's designed for criminals. Okay. So, and yes, we do a lot of training on mental health and we try to treat them with kid gloves, but they're just things we can't do that other places can, which are more appropriate. Which there's a bunch of other bills I've testified against of, it seems to be more and more pushing out to the jails and away from other places that actually specialize in this stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, jails we have put a lot of money into specializing these kinds of things, but I'm not a hospital. We're not a hospital, those kinds of things.
I
So
think it's because
brick
you
and mortar,
actually you have a building in beds, so people see.
right? And more pressure is being put on to do more. But if there was places like that, that some place that they could actually go to, if you read the protective custody statute, it used to say that if somebody was intoxicated, you actually brought them to a place. Those places don't exist anymore. So that's why the jails are now what the other option is. So if you bring those kind of places back, they're intoxicated, they're in mental health crisis, those kinds of things, that they can be treated properly. And if they can't from there, they're too violent, or the crime says they have to go over here. But there is a huge faction over that could go to a place like that.
Absolutely. Can I get a follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Follow up, yeah.
And then in terms of the bail commissioner issue, in your experience, and I don't want to have you speak for the court, but in your experience, having worked with the court a lot, why is the court saying no to issuing the payment to the bail commissioners?
Why is the court saying no?
Yeah.
Well, it's always been traditional that the individual has to pay the bail commissioner because it's a fee for them. I think the court didn't want to pay the bail commissioners because it costs them. It will cost money there, and then they'd have to go after the individual who didn't pay the cost. So it means they're going to need to have somebody going after and getting those reimbursed back.
Can I get another follow-up to that?
Quick, yeah.
Quick. Wouldn't it make more sense to have the court go after those individuals than for them to?
Sure,
Just
they're the only ones that have
follow
they're the only ones that can. The
Right.
bail commissioner itself can't go after them, so
Exactly.
they're the only ones that would have the ability to they could tax it on to their restitution or anything else when they went to court. So there's more opportunities there than there's a single bail commissioner do anything.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Representative Pratt.
The electronic monitoring device, do they make one that monitors drugs and alcohol?
They make multiple different ones. I know alcohol, there definitely you can do with alcohol. There's things you can do with their cars and those kinds of things. There's a lot of technology out there. There's some
Good.
Actually, Representative Pratt, I just read an article yesterday where there's one that does, it does drug, somehow I don't know how it does it, but, so I'm sure it costs a pretty penny too. Representative Newman.
Yeah, I just have a quick question about somebody who is arrested for DWI. And there are various degrees of intoxication. How is that treated when they come in to see the bail commissioner and or the judge? And what happens to a person?
for DWI.
Yeah.
So it depends. A lot of times DWIs are actually handled right at the police department with a bail commissioner. But if they come to us, we can see intoxicate people all the time. If they're able to speak coherently, we'll call bail commissioner and they would just come in and sit down with them. Bail commissioner goes all the forms and all that kind of stuff, what they're eligible for, those kinds of things, set up a court date. Most of those, a lot of times, are just set as personal recognizance. Usually is that you're promising to show up at court.
Thank you.
But if the person appears too intoxicated to understand the terms of the bail, what do you do then?
So a couple things. For the jails, we probably would encourage the person to just wait a little bit. But if they've already seen a bail commissioner, which sometimes does happen, and also no bail's put on because the person's not able to participate, once they sober up, they still have the opportunity again to, do you want to see a bail commissioner? Because now you're in a right state of mind to see a bail commissioner. So they still have that right. We'll say there's some rub with some other law enforcement agencies and stuff when you do that because they've already left. But to be on the safe side from almost all the jails, we're like, now we're the ones that have to keep them and deal with them, not other outside agencies. And I came from being a full-time cop years ago. So it's great. I had to rest, drop off, and leave. Now I'm on the other end. I'm like, oh, it's not so great when they have to stay. So we can get them bail as best as possible because now they're in the right state of mind to participate in that process.
Representative Stone.
Thank you. In your experience, how often do you see violations of pretrial release actually having their bail revoked by the courts after their incidents are documented, they're submitted, and obviously I would assume there's a hearing that's held. How often are you seeing anyone's bail being revoked for violating the terms of their release?
Talking bail or you said pretrial? Because pretrial is different. So got bail. Not often enough. I've seen people that, who violated their bail several times and come back and it's not revoked or maybe increased of what they have to do. Past several years, I've seen a rise of people able to do more crimes and break their bail without having consequences of having to And I'm not an advocate, just so you know, of advocate more people staying in jail. My job is to put myself out of business. That's what my job is, to get people corrected. But at the same time, the frustration when you see somebody either drive again or driving out a suspension or going out and committing another assault, stealing again. I know people have considered stealing now low level because it's, they're going for their drugs and stuff, but when they do it over and over again, it's not a victimless crime. Somebody gets something stolen. So we see a lot of those repetitive over and over and over again. It takes a long time for them to revoke the bail.
Thank you.
Do you have the ability to track? In other words, you know how many people are repeat offenders back to your facility. Are you able to track the number of people that are, for example, brought back while they're on bail and then released again?
I don't think we're able to I can tell you who's come back. We can track who's come back in the facility. It would be difficult to track who's come back, who's on bail without actually opening individual files.
Okay. Representative Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Superintendent Henry. Chairman Roy basically just asked one of the questions that I've been waiting to ask, which was about, I guess, for lack of a better term, repeat offenders, if you will. But my next question, and I realize this is kind of an opinion, if you will, but we're hearing from some bail commissioners, and we're hearing, obviously from all sorts of people testifying. And one of the things we're hearing is about inconsistencies with bail commissioners. So with that being said, and I don't know why I didn't ask anybody else this until now, is there any kind of a guideline where, if the person has been arrested for X, Y, or Z, that, this is like the general rule of thumb for bail? Or is it just really up to that bail commissioner?
I had a hard time speaking for them because it's not something that our side really deals with.
Okay.
I can tell you from years of experience, yes, some of it is up to the individual bail commissioner. They do get training from the courts to try to have them consistent, but I do not believe that there is a matrix per se that says you do this many times, you get X. So do I think there's a way to be more consistent? Sure. If the courts put something together, I think we can all follow a matrix or something along those lines if it was put together. We do that for a lot of things we do inside for our assessments.
May have a follow-up. To follow up with that, and kind of piggyback on Chairman Roy's question, it was as far as, somebody was out on bail and now they've been rearrested. And one of the questions that I had asked somebody previously was, somebody that was out and, they were told, don't do drugs, don't do alcohol, and now they're rearrested. And what was that number? Do you see a larger percentage of people being rearrested, within, I would say a close period of time? Or do you see more of, hey, I kind of got out of jail free card, waiting to go and see the judge? Or is it just like this revolving door? Because we're hearing both, right?
See more of a revolving door. People take this back to you putting restraining order on. It's just a piece of paper says don't go do it. And then people still go and commit horrible crimes. This piece of paper says do not go drink, do not that, blah, blah, blah. And what they go do? They go do it anyways. It's just a piece of paper. So revolving door. And short durations of time, seen quite a few people back on, especially those kinds of stuff that's put on their bail form.
Just clarify what I heard. So basically what you're saying is the piece of paper is just that, and there really isn't any teeth to what the conditions are.
Personal recognizance bail doesn't have a lot of teeth in it. It's just a promise that you're going to show up to court. Bail, cash bail it hurts a little more because you're going to be out of money. So yeah, it's not, again, it's just a piece of paper. You're promising it. Does it work for some people? Sure. But do we see more come in than not? Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You said you had worked in other counties before, some of them further up north. It's my understanding that there are a lot of police departments out there. Well, they don't even have departments. They just have like one guy. How do they handle transports do they leave their town and go to the jail and their town's just not covered? I mean, or do you ever offer, or do the counties ever offer the ability to go pick up that prisoner for them?
9 out of 10 times it's the town that brings them in. You know, when I worked for Whitefield PD way back when, it was just a one car driving up to Coas County. Hopefully another town would try to get them to cover. Depending on what sheriff's department you have, some are more active, some are not, because they're more on the civil side. Sometimes they may have a car that will work with that local PD, but most of the time it is just a local PD coming to the jail, which is also a strain. They want to get back on their town as fast as possible. But at the same time, as a jail, we need paperwork done. We need a bail set. We need all these other things. So it's a competing harms type thing sometimes. You know, sometimes the PD just want to drop them off and go, you get a bail commissioner. Well, we can't because we're not the ones that can tell what happened and everything else and blah, blah, blah. So having more bail commissioners readily available is a huge help for those local PDs. A lot of times we're waiting for quite a long time and your town is not covered, especially those small towns.
Does the sheriff, because you guys patrol all of Rockingham County, do the sheriffs have the ability to pick up coverage for the town if they can't transport for them?
I don't like to speak for the sheriff. We don't, you know, I don't work for his department, but he have the ability? Sure, he does, and he does work. Rockingham County in particular, it's a very large department, so they actually have some cars, and they will work with some of the local PDs if they're around. But some of the smaller sheriff's departments, again, they're doing civil stuff Monday through Friday. They may have a car if they're lucky out in the evening, or even if they have one. Some of the sheriff's department, like where I was before at Carroll County, the sheriff up there has partnered with several towns, and actually they pay to have coverage through the sheriff's department. So there is some of that, and depending what hours they're doing, I don't know. So there's hybrids out there, different things.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we really appreciate that. If you could get that information to me regarding the cost of your program,
Yep.
your pretrial program, I'd be interested to see what that costs you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to ask about the share about the transportation.
Oh, you're in?
You
I
did
stole
it.
that too.
You got it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be stealing stuff. Do you have anyone else?
Telepathy.
Not today. Okay.
There's telepathy going on there, Chair.
Yeah, okay. So, is there anyone else here that wanted to testify today? Seeing none, we're going to just take 10 minutes to regroup and figure out what we're going to do, and then we'll take it up again. that will be all the witness testimony we have for today. So we're going to be wrapping up shortly. I just wanted to, for the benefit of the committee and everyone else, I'm sure you feel the same way I do. The further we open this chest, the more we find things popping out at us that we had not anticipated or no one has thought of. I'm contemplating asking the committee to take one of these bail bills that we have and create a study commission, not a committee that only has a year to come up, a commission, and call it a law enforcement summit, where we bring the sheriffs, the police, the defense bar, the attorney general, everyone that judges into a room, and don't let them out until white smoke comes out of the roof, because there is such a disconnect between what happens in different parts of the state that your involvement in the criminal justice system is almost like playing the lottery. You could get lucky and win or not. And unfortunately, we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about victims. We're talking about offenders. We're talking about everyone. And even if we can't afford the best criminal justice system in the country, we can certainly afford an orderly one and a uniform one. And that would be the goal, I believe, of this commission. So I'll be asking the committee to consider that as one of the bills that we have retained. I will be scheduling a public hearing because it is non-germane to the original one of the bills. So look for that coming up in the very near future, because we still are under the deadline of having it out by the beginning of November. Anyone else wish to make a comment before I close? If not, next week, Thursday and Friday, we have two very booked days of people coming to speak to us. We have more people from the counties who run the pretrial programs, so we can understand what that entails, what it costs, what a best practice might be. And just for your future planning purposes, the 20th of October will be the last day we hear any witness testimony. After that, we will definitely be having the remaining several meetings will be to make sure we have everything on paper and ready to submit to the clerk. I believe it's the 3rd of November. We're going to meet as the full committee to offer our recommendations to the full committee for a vote. So that's where I'm at. Any questions or concerns, Representative Rhodes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that in Cheshire County, we do have these diversion programs. We have the pre-court, we have the drug diversion, we have the youth diversion, depending on what age you find yourself starting to get into trouble, and they're working quite well. I did send an email while we were listening to Superintendent Henry, asking our county controller if he would send me those parts of the budget in an email. I do have them at home. I was just hoping maybe they would come over while we were sitting here, and I will share with the committee what programs Cheshire County has and their cost. Because if, Rockingham County has a few, my understanding was he was stating is they're working very well for that county as well. So I will bring that and share with the committee, basically the cost and how many people and so forth, see if that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be helpful. I think that we need to look at best practices, and whether they be in this state or not. I'm not a fan of reinventing wheels. So we need to look at the best practices across the state. I'm not sure that the pretrial program will be something we'll be able to reach into with this. It may be something that has to be dealt with in a study commission, just because of the expense and technical nature versus the time we have left. But it's something that will be addressed. I think in that study commission, a lot of times you'll see a study commission that'll say study the interoperability of criminal justice in New Hampshire. We're not going to do that. We're going to spell out exactly what we want the study commission to address: bail, substance abuse, using the criminal justice system to deal with mental health, things of that nature. So there's that. With that, I will see you all next Thursday. Enjoy your long weekends.